The Morning Star dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Jeju 7 system, and immediately every alarm on the ship started screaming. Hana's screen filled with warnings as she detected 12 Veltari warships in orbit around the colony planet. 12 ships for a quarantine, Taman said from his station, disbelief clear in his voice. That's a military blockade. Captain Deho studied the tactical display. The Veltari ships were positioned in a perfect grid around Jeju 7, their weapons powered but not actively targeting anything. It was a cage, precise and unbreakable. Hana broadcast our credentials. Let them know we're here on a humanitarian mission, Deho ordered. Within seconds, a response came. Not a message, but a direct video link. The screen filled with the image of a Veltari commander. The alien was tall and thin, with skin that seemed to shimmer between blue and silver. Its eyes were large and dark, showing no emotion that humans could recognize. Human vessel Morning Star. I am Veltar Prime Commander Ixentunces. You will leave this system immediately. The quarantine is absolute, Deho stepped forward. Commander, we received a distress call from the colony. We're here to assess the situation and provide aid if needed. There is no situation that requires your presence. A pathogen has been detected. All life on Jeju 7 must remain isolated until we determine it is safe. This may take several months, possibly years. Years, Taman muttered. That's not a quarantine, that's a death sentence. The Veltari commander's head tilted slightly as if hearing something far away. You will leave now or we will disable your ship and tow you to the nearest neutral station. The screen went black. Deho stood silent for a moment, his fists clenched. Then he turned to Hana. Find me a way to talk to the colony. Underground channel, tight beam, something they can't jam. While Hana worked, the Morning Star moved to a position just outside the Veltari blockade range, close enough to study the situation, but far enough to avoid immediate threat.
From there they could see Jeju 7 below.
A beautiful blue and green world that humans had spent decades terraforming. It took Hana 3 hours, but she finally managed to punch a narrow communication beam through the Veltari jamming. Administrator Yuna's face appeared on screen, and she looked worse than in her distress message. Her eyes were red, her face pale. Morning Star, thank the stars you came, she said, her voice shaking slightly. What's really happening down there? Deho asked. The Veltari are claiming a pathogen, but that doesn't feel right. Yuna's laugh was bitter. There's no pathogen. We've run every medical scan we have. No one is sick. No one has even had a common cold in weeks. 2 days ago, one of their shuttles landed outside our main city. They took soil samples from the valley where we plan to expand our agriculture. Then they left without a word. Taman leaned closer to his screen. Agriculture? What were you growing there? Nothing yet. It's undeveloped land. Rich soil, though. Survey said it had high concentrations of rare minerals. We were going to start coffee plantations there next season. Something clicked in Taman's mind. What kind of minerals? Yuna pulled up a data file and transmitted it. Taman's screen filled with geological survey information. His eyes went wide as he read the composition analysis. Viridium 9, he whispered. Captain, there's Viridium 9 under that valley. Tons of it. Deho's expression hardened. Viridium 9 was one of the rarest elements in the known galaxy, essential for advanced faster-than-light drives. A deposit the size of what the survey showed would be worth more than some entire star systems. They don't care about a pathogen, Deho said. They want the minerals and we're in the way. On the screen, Yuna's face showed understanding and anger mixing together. Those lying, she stopped herself. What do we do? How long can you hold out? Deho asked. Yuna looked away from the camera, and when she looked back, her expression had changed to something worse than anger. It was fear. Captain, we have another problem. Our coffee supply? What about it? Jeju 7 imports most of its coffee from Earth. We have local crops, but they take years to mature in our terraformed soil. We had a 6-month supply in storage. But 3 days ago, the Veltari commander sent a landing party. They said they needed to inspect our food storage for contamination. They took samples of everything. When they left, our main coffee storage was destroyed. They claimed it was an accident, some kind of scanning equipment malfunction. Taman felt his blood run cold. How much is left? If we ration carefully, maybe 3 days. 4 at most. The bridge of the Morning Star went silent. Every person there understood what that meant. A colony of 50,000 humans cut off from the galaxy and about to lose their coffee supply. It sounded almost funny when said out loud, but everyone who had spent time in space knew the truth. Coffee wasn't just a drink. It was stability. It was routine. It was the thing that kept people sane when they were millions of miles from home. Studies had shown that human colonies without reliable coffee supplies had higher rates of depression, lower productivity, and increased conflict. Some had even failed entirely, their populations requesting evacuation rather than continue without it. "There's a man here," Yuna continued. Jae Sung. He runs a small local coffee roasting operation. He has maybe a week's worth of beans stored if we're lucky. But Captain, you need to understand. People are already on edge. The blockade has everyone scared. When the coffee runs out, she didn't need to finish. They all knew. "We'll figure something out," Daeho promised, though his voice lacked certainty. After the call ended, the three of them sat in silence. Finally, Taemin spoke. "The Veltari know," he said quietly. "They know what losing coffee means to humans. That's why they destroyed the storage. They want us desperate. They want the colonists to give up and leave so they can mine the Viridium without complications." Hana looked up from her console, her face pale. "Captain, I'm picking up another transmission from the surface. It's a live feed from the colony." She put it on screen. They saw the main square of Jeju 7's capital city. A crowd had gathered, maybe 1,000 people. In the center of the square sat the colony's industrial coffee machine, a massive unit capable of serving the entire population during morning hours. Standing next to it was a Veltari in ceremonial armor, flanked by 4 guards. Administrator Yuna was there too, arguing with the alien, but no audio came through. Then they watched as the Veltari commander raised a device and pointed it at the coffee machine. "No," Taemin whispered. A beam of blue light shot from the device. The coffee machine exploded in a shower of sparks and twisted metal. The crowd's reaction was immediate and violent. They surged forward, screaming. The Veltari guards raised their weapons, firing warning shots into the air. The crowd stopped, but barely. One man didn't stop. He ran at the nearest Veltari guard, pure rage on his face. The guard's weapon came down, stunning the human into unconsciousness. More guards appeared, and the crowd was forced back, but the damage was done. The Veltari had just taken away the one thing that kept 50,000 humans civilized. And they had done it on purpose. "They're not just mining," Hana said, her voice shaking with anger. "They're studying us. They're testing what happens when humans lose their coffee. We're an experiment." Daeho stood up, his decision made. "Taemin, how fast can you build a coffee machine?" The engineer looked at his captain like he was crazy. "What? A coffee machine? A big one? Can you build one?" Taemin's mind raced through possibilities, through designs and materials they had on board. A smile slowly spread across his face. Not a happy smile, but one that promised trouble. "Yeah," he said. "Yeah, I can build one. But Captain, if we're doing this, we're not just breaking a quarantine. We're declaring war." Daeho's expression was stone. "Then let's make sure we win." Taemin hadn't slept in 2 days. His eyes were red. His hands shook slightly from too much coffee and too little rest, but he kept working. The engineering bay of the Morning Star had been transformed into a workshop that looked more like organized chaos than professional work. Pieces of metal lay everywhere, sorted by size and purpose. Tubes and wiring snaked across the floor. In the center of it all stood his creation, a coffee machine unlike any other in the galaxy. It was huge, nearly 3 meters tall and 4 meters wide, with multiple brewing chambers, pressure systems, and a water reservoir that could hold enough for 10,000 cups. "You look terrible," Hana said from the doorway. Taemin didn't look up from his welding. "I feel terrible. But it's almost done. The captain wants an update. Tell him 12 hours, maybe less." Hana watched him work for a moment. "Taemin, even if we get this thing to the surface, even if it works, how does that help? The Veltari will just destroy it like they did the last one." Now Taemin looked up, and there was something fierce in his tired eyes. "Let them try. This machine is shielded. Military-grade hull plating on all sides. Heat-resistant. Impact-resistant. It would take sustained weapons fire to damage it. And if they do that in the middle of a civilian population, every species in the galaxy will turn against them." On the planet below, Administrator Yuna walked through the streets of the colony's main city. It had been 2 days since the Veltari destroyed the coffee machine. The last of the imported coffee had run out yesterday morning. Jae Sung's emergency supply was all that remained, and he was rationing it strictly. 1 small cup per person per day, priority given to essential workers. The effect was already visible. People moved slower, talked less. Faces that had been worried now looked hollow. Some stayed in their homes, lacking the energy to come out. Productivity at the farming stations had dropped by 40%. 2 fights had broken out over nothing, people's tempers razor thin without their morning routine. Yuna entered Jae-sung's coffee shop, a small building that smelled like roasted beans and desperation. Jae-sung himself stood behind the counter, carefully measuring out portions. He was a big man, former military with scars on his arms and a gentle face that contrasted with his size. "How much left?" Yuna asked quietly. 2 days. 3 if people accept half portions. His voice was flat, defeated. "The Morning Star is still up there. They're planning something." Jae-sung shook his head. 1 ship against 12 Veltari warships? What can they do? Before Yuna could answer, a young woman burst into the shop. Her name was Bora, the colony's xenobotanist responsible for adapting Earth plants to Jeju 7's environment. Her eyes were bright with excitement, the first real emotion Yuna had seen in anyone for days. "I did it," Bora said breathlessly. "I actually did it." "Did what?" Yuna asked. "Come with me, both of you. You need to see this." They followed Bora to the colony's greenhouse complex, a series of transparent domes on the edge of the city. She led them to the back section, past rows of vegetables and fruit trees, to a locked door marked experimental section. Inside, the air was humid and smelled rich and earthy. In the center of the room, under special growing lights, were 20 small plants. They had dark green leaves and small white flowers. "Coffee plants, I know what you're thinking," Bora said quickly. "Coffee takes years to mature. These plants are only 6 months old. They shouldn't even be flowering. But I've been working on a hybrid, crossing Earth coffee with some native Jeju 7 plants that have accelerated growth cycles. I thought it would take years to perfect, but yesterday they just bloomed." Jae-sung moved closer, his professional eye examining the plants. "These are coffee plants? They look different. The genetics are 70% Earth coffee, 30% native vegetation. They grow 10 times faster, mature in months instead of years. And look." Bora pointed to small green berries already forming on the branches. "Coffee cherries. They'll be ready to harvest in 2 weeks." 2 weeks? Yuna felt hope for the first time in days. "Can you grow more? Enough to supply the colony?" Bora's excitement dimmed. "That's the problem. These plants are incredibly particular about their growing conditions. They need specific soil composition, exact humidity levels, and certain minerals in the ground. I've tried growing them in other parts of the greenhouse, but they die within days. The only place on Jeju 7 with the right natural conditions is the valley," Yuna finished. "The valley where the viridium is." "Exactly. The same minerals that make the deposit valuable also create the perfect growing environment for these plants. It's the only place on the planet they'll thrive." Jae-sung laughed, but it was a bitter sound. "So the one place we could grow enough coffee to save the colony is the exact place the Veltari want to mine." Perfect. Above them, in orbit, Captain Daeho was having similar frustrations. He had called every contact he had in the human fleet, every ally, every favor owed. The response was always the same. The Veltari were an ancient and powerful race. No one wanted to provoke them over a single colony, especially not over something that sounded as trivial as a coffee shortage. "They don't understand," Daeho said to his empty quarters. "None of them understand." He pulled up historical files on his computer, searching through military records. There had to be something, some precedent, some answer. And then he found it. The Battle of Proxima Station 70 years ago. Human forces had been holding against an enemy siege for 3 months. Then their supply ships were destroyed, including the one carrying coffee. Within a week, the station fell. Not because they ran out of ammunition or food, but because the soldiers lost their will to fight. The Siege of New Terra. 50 years ago. Similar story. Coffee supplies cut off. The colony surrendered within days despite having enough weapons and food to last months. There were more examples. Dozens of them. Every major human defeat in space had one thing in common. The loss of coffee came first. Collapse followed soon after. The Veltari had studied humanity for centuries. They knew this pattern. They knew exactly what they were doing to Jeju 7. Daeho's communication system beeped. It was Taemin. "Captain, it's ready." Deho rushed to the engineering bay. There it stood, Taemin's masterpiece. The coffee machine gleamed under the work lights, massive and impossible and beautiful. It can brew 10,000 cups per hour, Taemin said, pride clear in his voice despite his exhaustion. Military shielding, self-contained power supply, water purification system built in. It's everything the colony needs. How do we get it down there? That's the tricky part. We need to break the blockade, land near the city and deploy it before the Veltari can react. We'll have maybe 10 minutes. Hana's voice came over the intercom. Captain, incoming message from the surface. It's urgent. Back on the bridge, they watched as Yuna explained Bora's discovery. The hybrid coffee plants, the valley, the impossible choice between the Viridium deposit and the colony's survival. There's more, Yuna said. We've been monitoring Veltari communications. We can't understand most of it, but we've picked up some words in Galactic Standard. They're not just studying our reaction to losing coffee. They're recording everything, adding it to their archives. This whole situation is an experiment to them. They want to know exactly how humans break when you take away their coffee. They're probably planning to use this information against us in the future. Deho's face went dark. They think they can weaponize our culture against us. Captain, Taemin said slowly, an idea forming. What if we do the opposite? What if we show them that our coffee doesn't make us weak? What if we show them it makes us stronger? How? Taemin pointed at his machine. We don't just deliver coffee to save the colony. We use it as a rallying point. We make it the symbol of human resistance. We plant it right in that valley, where both the Viridium and the best soil for Bora's plants are. We tell the Veltari that if they want either, they'll have to go through every caffeinated human on that planet. Hana smiled, fierce and determined. A 10,000 cup per hour monument to human stubbornness. We'll need help from the surface, Deho said. Someone to organize the people, someone who knows tactics. Yuna's face on the screen showed understanding. I know someone. Hunwoo, former Special Forces, retired here 5 years ago. If anyone can organize a resistance, it's him. Contact him. Tell him to prepare. We're coming through that blockade whether the Veltari like it or not. As preparations began, Taemin returned to his machine. He had one more modification to make, something he had discovered while building it. The resonance frequency of the brewing system, the vibration it created when operating at full capacity, just happened to match the exact frequency that disrupted Veltari mining equipment. It was a coincidence. Probably. But Taemin didn't believe in coincidences. He believed in coffee, and he believed that sometimes the universe had a sense of humor. The machine would brew coffee for the colony, but it would also make sure that as long as it was running, the Veltari couldn't mine a single gram of Viridium from that valley. One machine, two purposes, typical human efficiency. Hyunwoo stood in the underground meeting room, looking at the faces of 300 volunteers. They were farmers, teachers, engineers, parents. None of them were soldiers anymore, though many had been once. Their faces were tired, worn down by days without proper coffee. But their eyes held something else now. Determination. The morning star is coming through the blockade tonight, he told them. They're bringing something that will change everything. But we need to hold the valley long enough for them to land and deploy. The Veltari will try to stop us. They will use force. A woman in the back raised her hand. Her name was Minji, a schoolteacher. We're not warriors. How do we fight the Veltari? We don't fight them directly, Hyunwoo explained. We make it impossible for them to act without the entire galaxy watching. Captain Deho has a plan for that. Our job is to get to the valley and hold position. No violence unless they start it. But we don't back down. Not one step. Jae-sung stood beside Hyunwoo holding a large container. I've been saving something. The last pure earth coffee beans I have. Enough for each person here to have 1 cup. Drink it now. Let it remind you what we're fighting for. He poured carefully 300 cups of precious coffee. The smell filled the room and people closed their eyes, breathing it in like it was oxygen itself. When they drank, it was almost ceremonial. This wasn't just caffeine. It was connection to home, to tradition, to everything that made them human in an alien universe. Above the planet, the morning star prepared for the run. Taemin had rigged the ship's shield generators to maximum, sacrificing weapons power for defense. They would be flying straight at the Veltari blockade, counting on surprise and the aliens' reluctance to fire on a civilian vessel. Hana, Captain Deho said, are we ready for the broadcast? Yes, Captain. The moment we breach the blockade, I'll transmit to every major news network, every government, every species with a receiver. The Veltari won't be able to hide what they're doing anymore. Daiho nodded. Taemin, engine status? Ready, we'll have one shot at this. Once we're in atmosphere, they'll scramble fighters. We'll have maybe 8 minutes to land and deploy the machine. Then let's make those 8 minutes count. The Morningstar's engines roared to life, pushing the ship forward. The Veltari blockade detected them immediately. Warning messages flooded the communication channels, orders to stop. Threats of force. Daiho ignored them all. Hana, now. She pressed the transmit button, and suddenly the Morningstar was broadcasting to the galaxy. The message was simple but damning. Video footage of the Veltari destroying the colony's coffee machine. Audio of their commander admitting the quarantine was false. Data showing the Viridium deposit and the Veltari's real intentions. And finally, a direct statement from Daiho. This is Captain Daiho of the human vessel Morningstar. The Veltari have illegally blockaded a peaceful human colony under false pretenses. They have destroyed essential infrastructure and are conducting experiments on human psychological responses. They believe they can weaponize our culture against us. They are wrong. The galaxy is watching.
History is watching.
And we will not surrender. The message repeated in 15 different languages as the Morningstar punched through the blockade. Veltari ships moved to intercept, but they hesitated. With the broadcast going out, with the galaxy watching, every action they took would be scrutinized. Firing on an unarmed civilian ship would be an act of war that even their ancient status couldn't protect them from. The Morningstar shook as it hit Jeju 7's atmosphere. Warning lights flashed across every console. The hull temperature rose dangerously high, but the shields held. Behind them, 6 Veltari fighters launched from the blockade ships, faster and more maneuverable than the Morningstar could ever be. 4 minutes to landing zone, Taemin reported, his hands flying across the engine controls. On the surface, Hyunwoo's group had reached the valley. It was beautiful. A wide expanse of rich soil between 2 hills with a stream running through the center. This was where Bora said her hybrid coffee plants would thrive. This was where the Viridium deposit lay beneath their feet. This was where they would make their stand. Veltari ground forces were already there, 3 dozen soldiers in formation, blocking access to the valley. Their commander stepped forward, the same one who had destroyed the coffee machine. Veltar Prime Commander Ixentunces. Humans, you are violating quarantine protocols. Disperse immediately or face consequences. Hyunwoo walked to the front of the crowd alone. He stopped 10 meters from the Veltari commander. There is no quarantine. There never was. You want the minerals under this valley and we're in your way. But we're not moving. You would risk your lives for dirt and plants? We're risking our lives for the right to exist without being experimented on. We're risking our lives because you made a mistake. You thought taking away our coffee would break us. You were wrong. It just made us angry. The Veltari commander tilted its head, studying Hyunwoo. You are one human with no weapons, leading farmers against trained soldiers. This is foolish, maybe, but I'm not alone, and we're not unarmed. The crowd behind him parted and Bora walked through carrying a small case. She opened it, showing the young coffee plants inside. These can save our colony. They can grow here in this valley and nowhere else. You can have your Viridium or we can have our future, but you can't have both. In orbit, the Veltari fleet commanders were having an emergency conference. The human broadcast had reached 17 different species so far. 5 governments had already issued statements condemning the blockade. The Galactic Council was demanding an immediate investigation. We should withdraw, one commander suggested. The political cost is too high. No, Ixentunces replied from the surface. We are committed. If we withdraw now, we appear weak. The humans are bluffing. They will not fight. Commander, their ship has entered atmosphere. They are heading for the valley. Above the valley, the Morningstar appeared through the clouds, trailing fire and smoke. Veltari fighters were close behind, weapons powered but not firing. They couldn't, not with the galaxy watching. Taemin fought the controls as the ship descended. Landing gear is damaged. This is going to be rough. Just get us down, Daiho ordered. The Morningstar hit the ground hard, skidding across the valley floor for 50 meters before coming to a stop. The cargo bay doors opened immediately, and Taemin's massive coffee machine rolled out on its deployment platform. Veltari soldiers moved to intercept, but Hyunwoo's group stood in their way. 300 humans unarmed, forming a line between the soldiers and the machine. More colonists were arriving, drawn by the news of the Morning Star's landing. Within minutes, there were 1,000 humans in the valley, then 2,000. "Move aside," Ixentunces commanded. "This is your final warning." "No," Yunwu said simply. The Veltari raised their weapons. The humans didn't move. Across the galaxy, billions of beings watched the standoff, broadcast in real time. Taemin activated his machine. It hummed to life, the sound growing louder, more powerful. The brewing chambers began to heat, the water systems engaged. And then, the first cup of coffee poured out. The smell hit the crowd like a wave. Rich, powerful, unmistakably coffee. A cheer went up from the humans, a sound of pure relief and joy. People rushed forward, grabbing cups as they filled, drinking deeply. And as they drank, something changed. Backs straightened. Eyes brightened. The exhaustion that had weighed them down for days seemed to lift. They weren't broken colonists anymore. They were humans, properly caffeinated, ready to defend their home. More cups filled. The machine worked faster, keeping up with demand. 10,000 cups per hour, just as Taemin had promised. The valley filled with the sound of brewing coffee and human voices growing stronger with each sip. Ixentunces watched this transformation with what might have been alarm in its alien features. This was not what the Veltari research had predicted. Humans deprived of coffee became weak and desperate. But humans who had lost their coffee and then regained it, that was something else entirely. That was fury with focus. That was determination with energy. That was dangerous. "Sir," one of the Veltari soldiers reported, "the machine is generating a resonance frequency. It's disrupting our mining equipment. As long as it operates, we cannot extract the viridium." The commander understood the trap now. The humans had turned their weakness into a weapon. The very thing the Veltari had tried to use against them had become their strength. And there, in the middle of the valley, protected by thousands of caffeinated humans and watched by the entire galaxy, sat a monument to human stubbornness. "All forces, withdraw to orbit," Ixentunces ordered finally. "Prepare for diplomatic negotiations." As the Veltari soldiers retreated, the humans cheered. They had won. Not with weapons or ships, but with determination and the simple, powerful comfort of a good cup of coffee. Bora immediately began planting her hybrid coffee plants around the machine, using it as the center of what would become a massive plantation. The plants would thrive here, growing impossible fast in the mineral-rich soil, ensuring the colony would never face this crisis again. Captain Daeho watched from the Morning Star and allowed himself a small smile. The battle was over, but the war, the real war for how the galaxy saw humanity, was just beginning. The Galactic Council chambers on Station Unity 7 had never been so crowded. Representatives from 43 different species filled the tiered seats, all focused on the proceedings below. In the center stood Ambassador Sujin, representing humanity. Across from her, Veltar Prime Commander Ixentunces stood with 3 of the Veltari High Council members. The Council Arbiter, an ancient being from a species so old they had no name anymore, floated above them all in a containment field. Its voice echoed through the chamber without sound, speaking directly into the minds of all present. This council convenes to address the incident at human colony Jeju 7. The Veltari are charged with illegal blockade, destruction of civilian infrastructure, and conducting unauthorized experiments on a sentient species. How do you respond? One of the Veltari council members stepped forward. Its voice was calm, showing no emotion. "We acted within our rights as senior galactic citizens. The humans possessed materials we required. We sought to acquire them through acceptable pressure tactics. Our archives indicated that removing human coffee supplies would encourage voluntary evacuation. We were studying the accuracy of our data." A murmur ran through the chamber. Several species made sounds of disgust. The Arbiter's presence seemed to sharpen, focusing on the Veltari. "You admit to deliberately targeting a cultural practice to force a population's displacement? We targeted a biological dependency. Humans require caffeine for optimal function. We simply withheld it. This is no different from cutting supply lines in traditional conflict." Ambassador Sujin stepped forward now, her voice clear and strong. "Honored Arbiter, honored council members, the Veltari have revealed something dangerous today. They have admitted to weaponizing cultural study. They learned about humanity, about our traditions and practices, and then attempted to use that knowledge to harm us. Your species' dependence on coffee is a weakness. Ix and Tunces replied, "We observed it. We documented it. We acted upon it." "You observed wrong," Sujin said. "You saw humans become irritable without coffee and assumed it was a weakness. You missed the point entirely. Yes, we love our coffee. Yes, we build our days around it. Yes, we become difficult when we don't have it. But do you know why?" She pulled out a small device and projected an image above the chamber floor. It showed Taemin's massive coffee machine in the valley, surrounded by thousands of humans. Coffee isn't just a drink to us. It's a ritual. It's a moment of peace in chaos. It's a connection to our home world when we're billions of miles away. It's the thing that reminds us we're human, even when everything else in the universe tries to make us forget. And when you take that away from us, when you attack something that fundamental to our identity, you don't make us weak. You make us absolutely furious. Another image appeared showing the standoff in the valley. Thousands of unarmed humans facing Veltari soldiers refusing to move. You thought removing our coffee would break us. Instead, you gave us something to fight for. You gave us a reminder of exactly what makes us human and why that matters. And then when we got our coffee back, you faced something your research didn't account for. Humans who remember what they almost lost. Humans who are defending not just their coffee, but their right to be themselves. The Arbiter's presence shifted, focusing on the Veltari. "Is this true? Did your research not account for human reaction to restoration of their cultural practice?" Ixentances was silent for a moment. "Our data was incomplete. We observed deprivation but not recovery. This was an oversight. An oversight that nearly started a war," Sujin said. "And here's what concerns me, Honored Arbiter. The Veltari have spent centuries studying every species in the galaxy. They know our weaknesses, our fears, our cultural pressure points. How many other species have they experimented on? How many other cultures have they tried to weaponize?" The chamber erupted in noise. Representatives shouted questions at the Veltari, demanded investigations, called for sanctions. The Arbiter had to exert its presence forcefully to restore order. "The Veltari will answer these questions," the Arbiter declared. "But first we addressed Jeju 7. What resolution does humanity seek?" Sujin had prepared for this moment. "We want 4 things. First, immediate lifting of the blockade and formal apology to the colony. Second, the Veltari will not contest human claim to the Viridium deposit in the valley. They attempted to steal it through deception and failed. Third, establishment of new council protocols protecting cultural practices of all species from exploitation. And fourth, the Veltari will update their human archives with the truth they learned." "Which truth is that?" the Arbiter asked. "That humanity's relationship with coffee is not a weakness. It's a strength. It's what keeps us sane in an insane universe. It's what reminds us of home. And anyone who tries to take it away from us will learn exactly how dangerous a properly motivated human can be." The Veltari council members conferred quietly. Finally, one spoke. "We accept the first 3 terms, but we will not alter our archives to reflect subjective interpretation." "Then let me help you with objective facts," Sujin said. She projected new data into the chamber. Every major human military defeat in the last century had one thing in common. Coffee supplies were disrupted first. You saw this pattern and thought it was weakness. But look at the victories. New images appeared. Battle after battle. Humans defending impossible positions, winning against larger forces, holding out when they should have fallen. Every single victory had something in common too. Maintained coffee supplies. Humans fighting for something they believed in, with their rituals intact, are nearly impossible to defeat. You didn't discover our weakness. You discovered what happens when you threaten the things we love. And that's not weakness. That's motivation. In the valley on Jeju 7, life had returned to normal. Better than normal. Taemin's machine had become the center of the community, brewing constantly, serving everyone who needed it. Around it, Bora's hybrid coffee plants were growing at impossible speed, their roots spreading through the mineral-rich soil. Yunwoo stood with Jae-sung, watching workers harvest the first mature beans from the hybrid plants. Just 3 weeks after planting, they were ready. The first truly Jeju 7 coffee, grown in soil that the Veltari had wanted to mine. "What do you think it'll taste like?" Jae-sung asked. "Only one way to find out." They processed the beans quickly, Jae-sung's expert hands working with familiar efficiency. Within an hour, the first pot was brewing. The smell was different from earth coffee. richer somehow with notes of something that reminded Hyunwoo of the Jeju 7 soil itself. They poured 2 cups and drank. For a moment neither spoke. Then Jae-sung smiled. The first real smile Hyunwoo had seen from him in weeks. It's good. Really good. Better than good. It's ours, Hyunwoo said. That's what makes it perfect. Back on Unity 7, the council had reached its decision. The arbiter's voice filled the chamber with final authority. The council finds the Veltari guilty of illegal blockade and cultural exploitation. The blockade will be lifted immediately. Jeju 7 will retain all rights to the Viridium deposit. New protocols will be established protecting cultural practices across all species. And the Veltari will update their archives but not as humanity requests. Sujin tensed, but the arbiter continued. They will update their archives with the truth as demonstrated, not as argued. The first rule regarding humanity will be changed from never interrupt their coffee to never underestimate what humans will do to protect their coffee. This is not subjective. This is observed fact. A slight smile crossed Sujin's face. That was even better. The Veltari council member spoke, its voice carrying something that might have been respect. We have observed humanity for centuries. We thought we understood you. We were wrong. Your species has shown us that love of simple things can be the foundation of extraordinary strength. We will not make this mistake again. See that you don't, Sujin replied. Because I promise you, every human in the galaxy now knows what you tried to do. And we have very long memories, especially when we're caffeinated. The session ended and Sujin returned to her ship. A message was waiting for her from Jeju 7. She opened it and saw Administrator Yuna's face, tired but happy. Ambassador, I thought you should know. The hybrid coffee is incredible. We're calling it Jeju Blend. We'll be exporting it within the month. The Veltari tried to take our future and accidentally gave us a product that the entire galaxy will want. How's that for irony? Sujin laughed. That's humanity for you. Turn every crisis into an opportunity. There's more. Taemin's machine has become a memorial. People come from all over the colony just to get coffee from it. We're building a plaza around it, making it the center of a new city district. Future generations will gather there, drink their coffee, and remember the day we proved that humans don't break easily. 6 months later, Jeju Blend coffee had become the most sought-after export in 3 sectors. The unique flavor, combined with the story of how it came to be, made it irresistible. Colonies across human space were requesting Bora's hybrid seeds, trying to recreate the growing conditions. Taemin's machine still ran 24 hours a day, now more symbol than necessity, though it still served the best coffee on Jeju 7. Around it, the city had grown. Taemin stood in the small kitchen of the Morning Star, watching the ancient coffee machine with the same focus a monk might give to meditation. The machine was older than he was, a relic from Earth that had survived 3 wars and countless light-year jumps through space. Its metal surface bore scratches and dents, each one a story he could probably tell if asked. But right now all that mattered was the ritual. He measured exactly 23 grams of coffee beans into the grinder. Not 22, not 24. 23. The beans were from the last shipment from Earth, stored in a vacuum-sealed container he guarded more carefully than his own belongings. When he pressed the grinder button, the sound filled the small space with a rough, comforting noise that meant morning had officially begun. The water temperature gauge climbed slowly. 93 degrees Celsius. Perfect. Taemin had the timing memorized down to the second. 30 seconds for the bloom, then a steady pour in circular motions. The dark liquid began to drip into the carafe below, releasing that smell that made everything else in the universe seem less important for just a few minutes. On the bridge, Hana sat at her communication station, running through the morning checks. Her screen showed the usual background noise of deep space, the electromagnetic whispers of distant stars, the occasional automated beacon from mining operations. Then something else caught her attention. A signal pattern she had seen before 3 days ago and 4 days before that. She pulled up the tracking data and frowned. The pattern was too regular to be natural, too subtle to be a mistake. Someone was following them. She enhanced the signal and felt her stomach tighten. The frequency matched Veltari technology. The Veltari, the first ones, the ancient alien race that had been traveling the stars when humanity was still figuring out fire. They rarely made contact with anyone anymore, preferring to observe from a distance, adding notes to their vast archives about every species they encountered. Most races considered it an honor to be studied by them. Humans found it creepy. Hana stood and walked to the captain's quarters. She knocked twice, and Captain Daeho's gruff voice told her to enter. He was sitting at his desk, reviewing supply reports, his gray hair still messy from sleep. "Captain, we have a Veltari probe following us," Hana said without preamble. Daeho looked up, his experienced eyes showing no surprise. "How long?" "At least a week, maybe longer. It's good at hiding." The captain leaned back in his chair and let out a long breath. "They're just watching, they always do. Did you know they have an entire section in their galactic archive just about humanity?" Hana shook her head. "Oh yes," Daeho continued, a slight smile on his weathered face. "Thousands of observations. Our wars, our art, our strange eating habits. But you know what the very first rule in their human section is?" "What?" "Never interrupt their coffee." Daeho actually laughed. Some Veltari observer probably 1,000 years ago watched a human get disturbed during their morning coffee and noted that humans become dangerously unpredictable when their coffee ritual is interrupted. They take it seriously. Every Veltari who studies humanity learns that rule first. Hana couldn't help but smile. "That's ridiculous." "Maybe. But they're not wrong. You ever try to talk to Taimin before he's had his coffee?" Before Hana could answer, the ship's communication system beeped urgently, not the normal beep of routine messages, but the sharp, insistent tone that meant emergency broadcast. Hana rushed back to the bridge with Daeho right behind her. The message was coming from Jeju 7, a human colony planet 3 days away at current speed. Hana played it on the main screen. A woman's face appeared, tired and frightened. She wore the uniform of a colonial administrator. "This is Administrator Yuna of Jeju 7 Colony. We are under quarantine by Veltari forces. They appeared 6 days ago and established a blockade around our planet. No ships are allowed in or out. They claim we have been exposed to a dangerous pathogen and must remain isolated. But our medical scans show nothing. No one is sick. We have 50,000 people here, including 5,000 children. We need help. Please, if anyone receives this message, we need help." The message ended and looped back to the beginning. Daeho stood silent for a moment, his jaw tight. "Hana, try to contact them directly," he ordered. She worked her console for several minutes, trying different frequencies, different approaches. Finally, she shook her head. "The Veltari blockade is jamming everything. That message got through, but I can't establish a two-way connection." Taemin entered the bridge, carefully carrying his cup of coffee. He took one look at their faces and knew something was wrong. "What happened?" Daeho explained the situation quickly. Taemin listened, taking small sips from his cup, his engineer's mind already working through the problem. "A quarantine doesn't make sense," Taemin said. "The Veltari don't interfere with other species like that. They watch, they record, but they don't act, not unless something threatens them directly." "Exactly what I was thinking," Daeho agreed. "Hana, plot a course for Jeju 7, maximum safe speed." "Captain, if we go there, the Veltari might quarantine us too," Hana warned. 50,000 humans need help. We're going." Taemin returned to the engine room to prepare for the hard burn that would get them to Jeju 7 as quickly as possible. As he worked, checking fuel mixtures and power couplings, his mind kept returning to what Daeho had said about the Veltari rule. Never interrupt their coffee. It seemed like a joke, a funny observation from ancient aliens who didn't understand human culture. But Taemin knew the truth that the Veltari had somehow recognized. Coffee wasn't just a drink. It was a moment of peace in the chaos of space travel. It was a connection to Earth, to morning sunlight through kitchen windows, to the simple pleasure of routine in an universe that constantly tried to disrupt routine. The Morning Star's engines roared to life, pushing the ship faster through the darkness between stars. In 3 days they would reach Jeju 7. In 3 days they would find out why the ancient Veltari had broken their own pattern of non-interference. And in 3 days, the galaxy would learn that some rules about humanity were written for very good reasons.